Hello, everybody, and welcome to Real Talk. I'm your host, Robert Zuckerman, and this week we're very pleased to have as our guest on the show a great American filmmaker, Matt Sconce. Welcome, Matt.
Thanks so much, Robert. It's good to be here.
And tell our listeners a little bit about yourself, where you're from, and give us a little bit of information about yourself.
Sure. So my name is Matt Sconce. I am an independent filmmaker, and I live in Oakhurst, California, which is at the south gate of Yosemite National Park. A beautiful place. Just enough snow, just enough pine trees, and just far enough away from large cities to be a nice small town. That's where I grew up. I own a movie theater in that town, a 5-screen movie theater, and I've been making feature films for a while now. I've produced 7 and I've directed 3. And the current one, named Alter, is in post-production right now, and we're shopping it for a place for it to live, in distribution.
Wow, you're a family man as well, right?
I am. That's my favorite job. I've been married for 13 years to my lovely wife Heather, and I have 2 children. I have an 8-year-old little girl named Mackenzie and a 5-year-old little boy named Caden.
And I'm just going to let viewers know that because this is kind of part of the filmmaking thing, and we would talk to young filmmakers, and as a photographer too. The fact is that we recorded our conversation yesterday, and there were some technical difficulties, so we have to re-record the first part of the conversation. So in filmmaking, we'll have multiple takes until you, as the director, feel you get it right. And
definitely.
And the same thing as a photographer, I did the same thing. I worked in Hollywood for many years, and I had many actors and people come over for headshots, for their professional work. And I would always tell people, look, this is a process. Don't feel that this is a one-time thing. If you get results and we don't feel that it's something you really like, come back and we'll get it right. And so that's kind of what we're doing here today. Take 2.
Take 2. Yeah, I'm used to that.
Can you remember, were there any times when you, like the maximum number of takes, or, different directors work differently. I've been with some directors who do 3 takes and then it's, they move on regardless. And I've been on some films where, they've done 30 takes. Where do you fit in with that?
I think that as I grew as a filmmaker, my takes got less takes. I became more decisive, and my vision became more of the understanding what I wanted. And so when I first started making feature films, I remember a time when I think we had 17 takes was the most that I had.
Yeah.
That was during the film Stricken. And as I learned more how to visualize what I wanted, we got down to Alter, and Alter was so fast the way we filmed it. Sometimes it was 1 take and maybe 1 for safety, but we just flew. And that also, of course, has a lot to do with the actors that I worked with. But I guess I can explain a little bit about Alter, if you'd like, about what it is, so that people know as I keep referencing it.
And it's your latest and greatest, as I understand it.
It is, and I think those are both truths about it. It's definitely the film I'm most proud of so far that I've directed, and it is my latest. And the difference between it and many other films that I've done or produced is that it's a found footage film. And so that is found footage. For people that don't know that are listening, is kind of like the Blair Witch Project or the Willow Creek or the Gallows. It's a movie, it's filmed from the perspective of one of the characters in the movie, and so everything has to be justified from that person's point of view. And so my friends were, some people might know the story of my friends, Travis Clough and Chris Loafing. They made a trailer, a found footage movie that they got funded, and the trailer was seen by a group called Management 360 in Los Angeles, just from it being on the internet and some horror forums. And then that company showed it to Jason Blum of Blumhouse, and then he talked to my friends, and he ended up coming on board. And so their trailer and their film that they filmed ended up becoming the movie The Gallows that released everywhere across the nation. And so as I watched them go through this process of found footage, it reminded me of an outline that I had written in 2011, working with my executive producer. And I realized, this sounds interesting. It sounds like a challenge. The limitation of having to have the camera see from a character's point of view was something that was exciting to me. And so I started to organize that and talked to my executive producer and said, hey, you want to make this happen? And so we rolled on it. And basically what Alter is it's the story of some friends from college that have been graduated for about 7 years, going back to a impromptu reunion with a bunch of their friends and bringing some people they care about along with them. And they end up having the caravan break down, and they end up getting lost as they try to catch up with that caravan and ending up in a very different place. And it leads them to a very dangerous situation where they have to fight for survival. And what I tried to do is have an interesting story with really deep characters and rich characters that people would care about, and then put them into situations where people are rooting for them to survive and rooting for them to escape. And I think we've succeeded. So far, the feedback that we've gotten has been really, really positive about people that love our trailer and people that feel it's a new breath of fresh air into the genre of found footage with its twists and turns and cinematography.
Now, when you say found footage, would this also sort of fall under the umbrella or be related to the horror genre?
Yeah, it definitely would. It's a horror film in the genre of found footage. So it's like it's a scary movie, but it's like you were watching the edit of the footage that was filmed by the people in the scary movie. And that's the difference. But we did, you're right about that. We skirted the line between true found footage and mainstream horror because we wanted people that like scary movies to like Alter, and we wanted found footage people that like found footage to also like the movie. And so far, that balance has worked really well for us.
And with found footage, when you talk about the perspective of it, does that somehow tend to bring the viewer more into the immediacy or the experience of the film, in your opinion?
I think it definitely can. I think if the found footage is done right, it can. It reminds me a little bit of the Choose Your Own Adventure books that I used to read when I was little. Instead of reading, a story about somebody, you felt like you were in the book. Right. I feel like found footage does the same thing for people watching movies when it's done properly. And to be done properly, I feel like it needs to. The biggest thing is why it has to explain why the person is still filming in dangerous situations. So some found footage movies do it better than others. I mean, some people will use the camera as a light source, and so they'll try to justify the camera is on because they're using it for their flashlight. Other people have other reasons, and we did it where the character that is using the camera, he only interacts with the world through the camera. He has Asperger's syndrome.
Oh, got it. Okay.
And his favorite thing in life, the way he interacts since his parents' death when he was younger, is he interacts through the world in his focus, which is cinematography and camera work. And so that's how he interacts with the world. And that also explains why he is so good at what he does, because the cinematography in Alter is as good as we could possibly make it. And, shot at 4K, shot in beautiful locations. And there had to be a justification of why does the camera work so good. And it's because it's been his focus for a long time, and he's pursued it and excelled at it.
Well, it's interesting. I mean, I've known a few young people with Asperger's, and to me, they're all like they're brilliant. They're very insightful, and they really excel in certain ways, which is very, very interesting to me.
Yeah, I agree, and they're amazing people, and so we definitely. We love the character of Bo in Alter.
Oh, that's good. That's good. So the cinematography then, because a lot of horror films or Blair Witch, they have a very handheld sort of home movie type of feel, and the way you're talking about it sounds like Alter has a more cinematic, bigger film quality to it because of the cinematography.
Right. And it does. That's hard to do in a found footage movie because a lot of the time, if you are going to hold a camera, if it's a small camera, you know how your hand will shake, and even when you don't even know it, and you'll get blurred images and all of that stuff, and that can make people feel really nauseous in the theater at 24 frames a second, being all shaky. And so, what we decided to do is we built a shoulder rig, and the way we filmed, it was a blend of the actor playing Bo. Standing behind me as the camera operator, and he would put his hand on my shoulder, and so everywhere he would want to go, I would be the camera. I would be pulling the focus. I would be moving in the directions that he was wanting to do, and then he would be speaking as if he was holding the camera. And if people changed cameras, if they grabbed the camera to point back at him, I would move into their position, and they would put their hand on my shoulder.
Wow.
So it was a complicated dance throughout the whole filming process, except when he actually filmed himself, which was several scenes where he would look in a mirror.
Wow. And where was the film shot?
The film was shot in the Central Valley and above that by Yosemite National Park. So it filmed in Fresno, California, Madera, California. It filmed up in the Bass Lake area, which is below Yosemite. And then the majority of the film was filmed at about 7,000 feet up a shore, road called Bayshore. And we filmed there in the summer for part of the movie. And then we filmed up there in the winter for the prologue part with about 3 feet of snow.
Wow.
We also filmed in a beautiful Swedish hunting lodge place called the Tenaya Lodge, who really they were great, and they worked with us and let us film there for the prologue.
Wow. And you said that so the majority of the film was in the summer, and then you went back in the winter in December.
Right.
Does that? But that's considered a prologue, so it's not. It doesn't it doesn't distract things because it's two different seasons. It all fits together. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So we shot what happened at the start of the movie second, and then we shot everything linearly in the summer. So in order, which was great because the actors were for Alter. I found the best actors I could possibly find in terms of their improv capability as well as how they were with the characters. And we did a pretty intense casting process. We had about 1,000 and maybe 1,300 submissions for the roles, the six roles that we were trying to fill for Alter. And then we narrowed that down to about 50 people that we invited to auditions down at Space Station Casting in Los Angeles. And when they arrived, we had them come in one at a time, and we had one of our actors we had already cast named Deep Rai, who was playing Ravi Dara. He would improv against them based on our outline of our scenes to see how they would do. And he played every role opposite of them. And we found almost all of our roles down in Los Angeles. And then there was one role in the role of the actor I talked about, Bo. Bo was a role. We found somebody who was pretty amazing down there, but I had this guy in mind named Jesse Parr, and he's from up here in Oakhurst. I've known him. He's been in plays and my wife's plays and a bunch of things. And I thought, this could be a breakout role for him. This could be something where he could shine. And so he came in and auditioned up here in the Central Valley after our Los Angeles auditions and really landed the role of Bo, and all the producers agreed. So what we did is we bussed him down, and he drove up with the other people that we had cast for the shooting, and they built their backstories. How did they know each other? What memories did they share from when they went to college? So by the time they arrived for filming, it's like they had known each other for all those years.
Wow. So that's good. And also in this film, you were telling me that, you had a full script, but that the actors were gifted in improv, and so how did that work?
Right. So what we did is we had a pretty intricate outline. Some lines that we needed to have said were there, but the majority of the movie is just really organic, on the spot improv amongst a very intricate outline that moves from point A to point B. And so the actors were creating a lot of the magic in the moments, guided, of course, by some script and outline all at the same time. It was a very freeing process for me as a filmmaker. I know a lot of the time, some directors will be down to the line. It has to be the exact wording. I'm the type of director that I want it to be the most honest performance.
Yeah.
So unless that line is necessary, for the plot, and if we can't say it a different way, then that's the only reason I would stick with it. But if the actor has a different take on it that doesn't change anything in the plot, but is more honest to that character, I'm very open to those creative choices, and I really like when they experiment with that. So Alter was a very big experiment that turned out very, very well. And the feedback we've been getting on the actors, which, the actors are phenomenal, is people are agreeing with that. They're saying the actors feel very real and they feel very honest, and that was my intention.
Well, they must have loved you for that too. I think as actors, sometimes, people who, want to do performances, they sometimes feel stilted by the film process, where you go and you do lines not out of sequence or out of chronology, and then you have to wait for 2 hours till the next lighting setup is done. And so,
right.
It's a certain mode that they get into, but a lot of them prefer that. So they must have really loved you for that.
I think they did. I think that they really enjoyed the process, but it was a very grueling process. I remember in the audition information that we sent out, we said, we need actors that are ready to brave the elements. They need to know that we're going to be in character almost 24 hours a day. Even when they're sleeping, they need to be in character just in case. Yeah. And they're going to need to be no shooting linearly. It's method. So there's going to be times when they're cold. There are going to be times when they're afraid. And so we went up there knowing that, and all these actors were down for that adventure. And when we arrived, we realized that the place we were going to, very like the movie itself, was a place that was out in the middle of nowhere. It had no cell phone reception. Where we parked all the cars with the food, so we didn't take the food with us for bears.
Yeah.
We hiked into the mountains about half a mile from the cars, and that's where our camp was. And so at night, if we needed to go back to the cars, we had to trek across this really, the wilderness and through this field with very high grass and through pitch darkness. And so we had some interesting experiences, and these actors went through a lot. For instance, one night we were walking along, and we saw a little baby deer in the forest, and it disappeared at the edge of the forest, and we looked right next to it with our flashlights, and a mountain lion was right there looking at us.
Oh,
and it backed into the forest, and we realized we didn't know how long it had been following us. It probably still was around the rest of the shoot. And we think there was a bear. A pack of coyotes ran through our camp one night. Everybody got into their tents, and then one morning we heard some scratching at the side of the tent, and then the seam popped, and something was trying to cut its way in. We realized it was a bobcat trying to come in and eat our little small dog that we had in the movie.
Oh, boy.
And so we went through our own adventures during the filming of the movie.
Well, it must have put everyone in sort of the right frame of mind and spirit too.
Exactly.
It sounded like the elements worked in your favor in a certain way.
They did, and we even got a surprise thunderstorm that caught us that first day. So we filmed in the thunderstorm, and it's in the movie, and things like that you just can't expect in nature when you have no cell reception to check the weather, but you just roll with the punches.
I think that's one of the great gifts, is to be open to the unexpected, because that's when those things can be treasures.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, so sometimes people. I had a friend who once said something to me many years ago, which really hit home when he said it, and it was something that became sort of a hallmark or a guidepost from my own work. And he said that if it gets in the way, it is the way. And so like a lot of times we go along with a certain plan, and if something doesn't fit in with the plan, we don't acknowledge it, we brush it off. But sometimes those unexpected things can really be the treasures.
Right. Yeah, I could totally see that, especially in filmmaking. You'll have something go wrong, and you'll realize it's not wrong. It's amazing, and you're so glad it happened. And then you'll say, let's do that again. Let's keep whatever that was in. Yeah. And it ends up being the thing that defines a role. We had an actor come in for my last movie of my comedy, Firefall. We had an actor come in, and his take on the character was so incredibly different from the way that we wrote it. And I think a lot of people would have been like, man, that is not how we saw it. But my team and the producer team loved what he did with it, because it was so different, but it worked better than what we had planned. So I think being open to those strange moments, and those moments where you're like, that's not exactly how I approached it, and then like laying ego aside and not having any ego, and just saying what makes the project the best it can be, and whatever makes the project the best it can be, let's go that direction. Yeah,
exactly. That's cool. There's another saying. When you get to know me, I'm a quote meister, but another quote that says, "Treasures rarely enter the house through the front door." And it's similar things. They often come in unexpected ways, around the side or in back. So that's pretty cool. So, how did you? We talked a little bit about this yesterday, but what kind of cameras did you use when you were filming Alter?
Well, I love shooting on the Red Epic. I like the Arri Alexa. I love those cameras, but they're very large in their footprint, and we knew we were going to be a lot of running and gunning through the forest, and so we decided to shoot on a Panasonic GH4, which shoots at 4K. So for people that don't know what that is, it shoots twice the resolution of what normal film projectors project in your theater. So that's the 4K TVs that are coming out right now. They need content, and so we decided to shoot at an ability to distribute at 4K. So we shot on a GH4, which is about the size of a normal still camera,
Mm-hmm.
and we put it on a really significant shoulder rig to give it its stability. We shot most of the movie on the GH4, and the way we ran sound is we wanted organic sound from the camera's point of view.
Mm-hmm.
So we had 2 shotgun mics on the rig pointed forward at different levels, and then actually 3 pointed forward, and then we had 1 pointed backwards to the actor. So we could get actual audio, very good audio from the camera's perspective. And then for the prologue, we shot most of the prologue on a GoPro Hero 4K Black. So we're shooting at 4K again with those little GoPro cameras.
Mm-hmm.
And we used something that that I learned from people that do action cinematography. I'm using GoPros, like in parkour, BMX, things like that. We learned something about the mouth mount. And so you use Instamorph plastic that you can get that's non-toxic, and then you heat it up kind of like you would a mouth guard for sports.
Right.
And you shape it around the mount for a GoPro,
Mm-hmm.
and then you put it into your own mouth or the actor's mouth, whoever is going to be the person that you want it from their POV, their point of view, and you shape it to their mouth. Then what they do is they hold this thing in their mouth, and the camera sits directly at eye level, but extremely stable rig, because in the middle of your head, it's extremely stable. When you walk, it almost doesn't move at all. And so for action scenes like running through the forest in the night, things like that for the prologue, or through 3 feet of snow, as you're being chased, when you have a GoPro mount like that, it's just a very stable, nice 4K image. So we did that a lot in the prologue, and we were very happy with it.
So in other words, the camera was actually mounted, or the mount was in the actor's or the camera person's mouth.
That's true. Yep.
Wow.
And so it's very stable, but it looks, the mount's in their mouth, and so the camera sits above that directly at their eye level. So if you want a true point of view, instead of having it on a head mount or something like that, it's actually looking from the eyes of the actor.
Mm-hmm. Wow. So now, in terms, the whole thing about video too is that it's so sharp that does the 4K or the higher K resolution make it even sharper, or how does it? What kind of enhancement or advancement in the quality from the previous generations does the 4K have?
Right. Well, what we notice is you can see a lot more detail. So, like if you're looking into the trees, you can see the needles on the trees. If you're looking into somebody's hair, you can see kind of the beauty of the texture of the hair.
Yeah.
Something that I know you always fight with 4K is sometimes 4K or any ultra high definition like that can be unflattering for skin, because you'll see pores and things like that.
Right.
But I feel like the way I shoot is very flat. So I shoot to get all the dynamic range in. I get all the highlights, all the bright spots and all the dark spots. I get it all in the image, so we can make all those decisions in post about how we want it to be. And something that I also do is I turn down the sharpness in the actual recording process, because it can always be turned back up with a 4K image. But what it does is it gives it a nice film feel. It gives it that natural, nice quality while keeping the detail.
Oh, that's good. That's good. Yeah, because I noticed same thing with with still cameras. Sometimes things get so sharp, that you want to tone it down a little bit. And that was sort of the one of the initial things, when people were debating film versus digital back when in the still photography and around late 90s, early 2000. Because the digital imagery was so sharp and everything was in focus, and you didn't really have that subtle or whatever quality that you have in film. But now I feel that, like you say, there's so many adjustments you can make that I feel you can actually get like a film, ish quality from video, regardless. So.
I agree. I think the technology's finally caught up to the desire of independent filmmakers to be able to do that. Yeah,
it's a great thing, I think. Too, and also,
I think so too.
Also, how do you feel? Because of course, back in the day, you couldn't look at your results right away. So even with film or still photography, you had to take your film to a lab and wait a day before you see the results. And now you can pretty much see everything right away. So so some people consider that helpful, and some people think that it somehow might diminish one's instinct or trust in one's instinct. What do you think about that?
I think that it's helpful, especially in very intricate, complicated scenes that are expensive.
Right.
Because you know that when you film them, you can see immediate feedback. But usually what I mean, I usually trust what I'm seeing, and I don't have to do playback for everything. I'll do playback with the take that I think is the best, just to make sure that I like it before we move on. But that's really all I do. I know some directors that will watch every single playback back after they say cut, and I feel like that slows down the process. I do think you need to trust your gut and trust your cinematographer. If you have somebody else also operating the camera, trust their focus pulling until you need to look at that actual shot. Because I think one of the beauty things of being able to see it instantly back is that you can move quickly as long as you don't watch every single take back, because there's no need for dailies or printing them or watching them later, because you already know that the shot's in the can. You already have it.
Right.
And that gives you a lot of peace of mind when you're going to sleep that night.
Oh yeah, because as the director and the producer, whatever, you have so much responsibility on yourself. And if the shot screws up, it's all the crew people and all the cast have to redo it. So in a way, you're kind of you have to show up strong all the time, and be the leader. So that's interesting. That's interesting.
Yeah. When something about that is, I feel like I've learned this a lot in making movies, is that it's definitely not a loner thing to do. An independent filmmaker making a movie in any sense is not something you do alone. And so I'm just so grateful for my team. And so I surrounded myself with amazing people, my producers and the cast. And the producers were also my crew in the mountains up there. And so there were 5 of us and me and the cast. And I could not have done this without them. And I think that's a secret that a lot of filmmakers need to learn right away, is to surround yourself with amazing people. And when you do surround yourself with amazing people, that your ability to create magic goes up so much more, because they encourage you when you're down, you encourage them. And you also, as long as they're the right people and they're good at what they do, and you kind of amplify each other's strengths.
Yeah. That's it. That collaborative process is really amazing. And it's really good. I mean, and also, I worked with some big Hollywood producers, among them Jerry Bruckheimer, and to me, I observed his gift is in bringing people together who know what they're doing and just let them do what they do. And I think that's important, giving trust to someone and empowering them, and it's an amazing process. And I said I worked on a number of big films with crews of 150 people or whatever, and it's like the first day there, everyone just kind of falls in place and starts doing what they do.
Yep.
And that's a really nice thing about the collaborative process of filmmaking that you just talked about. So and what is going to be the running time of Alter?
Alter right now is sitting at 84 minutes long.
Oh, that's good.
I feel like that's a good length for a movie like this.
Yeah.
I feel like it's one of those lengths where it's longer than TV show by a lot, so you feel like you got your money's worth when you watch it. And it's long enough that you can build characters so that people can care about them. You have enough time to do that, but it's not too long where it feels like it drags out.
Right. No, that's good. Because I remember in Hollywood, I used to get invited to a lot of screenings, and there were free screenings. And sometimes, though, if the film overextended its welcome or wasn't good, I felt like I was robbed of my time, even though I didn't pay any money to go in.
Yep.
And so that's it. Or I've been in films where I say, well, this film is 20 minutes too long. It should have ended 20 minutes ago.
Yep.
So that's all part of it. We got about 1 minute left before we have to go to our station break, and we've completed the part that got screwed up yesterday. So when come back, you're going to be talking about your inspirations and some other aspects of how you got into it, and so that'll be good. But any advice that you can give to young filmmakers right now before we go to our commercial break?
I would just say, and I'll talk about this later too, but I will just say the first piece of advice that's different than what we'll hear later is that to find good people that are honest and trustworthy, that are doing well at this, and go help them, be on set with them, lend your time with them, ask questions, and learn from their success. Don't reinvent the wheel if you don't need to. Go learn from people that are doing it well.
Yeah.
And then the second piece of advice I'll give later in the show, but for sure, that's one of the first steps to becoming good at what you do, is to go follow in the footsteps of people that are good at what they do.
Well, those are some good words. We're going to take a break now and pay some bills. We'll be back again with Matt Sconce.
Hey there, sexy. This is comedian Jenny Lavoie. You can catch me with the rest of the gang every Thursday at 10 p.m. Eastern on Night Talk with Joe Rocks, exclusively on Armed Radio Global. Mwah!
So here we are. We're back, and I'm here with Matt Sconce, filmmaker, film aficionado. It sounds like you've really gotten bit by the bug. And tell us, we all have people that have, most of us who were coming up, in photography, I had certain influences, people who early on affected me. Who are some of your influences and favorites?
Growing up with movies, I really, I've never been good with names. I've never been good with placing, for instance, when I make a movie, I feel like it's like a giant organism, and sometimes it's hard for me to separate things out. But I know what really affected me, some movies that really affected me were The Matrix. I remember watching The Matrix.
Oh, yeah.
And visually, it really affected me because I'm also a martial artist, and I had seen a lot of great martial arts movies, but that was one of the first times that, in my opinion, the beautiful cinematography met this amazing action and the brand new cutting edge effects. That really affected me, and it made me feel inspired, and it made me feel like I wanted to stand up and cheer.
Yeah.
And that movie was one of the first things that made me want to do the same. I wanted to make stories that made people stand up and cheer and that inspired them emotionally. And that's one of my first memories of movies that made me feel that way. I remember walking out of the theater and thinking, what just happened to me? And little did I know I'd be making movies in the future. I thought, well, I just want to tell stories, and it led to the filmmaking. Some of my favorite filmmakers are Steven Spielberg. I really like J.J. Abrams' work.
Oh, yeah.
I love a lot of the classics. I mean, one of my favorite movies is It's a Wonderful Life.
Yeah.
I love the characters in that.
That's Capra?
It's just, yeah.
Frank, yeah.
Yeah, there's just so many great moments like that.
Yeah.
But actually, the people that really inspire me are the people that I know in real life, and it's their stories, like in my life.
Yeah.
Like my wife, like my family, and people like that, my friends and my co-producers. People like that inspire me with ideas for stories.
Well, yeah, I think that there are, I began a body of work in 2002 that's called Kindsight, and it was kind of a personal response to 9/11 and the whole specter of terror that we were cast upon. And I was talking to a friend of mine one day, and we came to the realization that the antidote to terror is in the richness of life that's always around us, to access. And so I just began documenting these random encounters that I'd have with people with a photo and a little story beneath it. And through doing this, I was as a kid, I was really shy and inhibited and low self-esteem, and I was kind of afraid to talk to people. Now I talk to everybody because I find, like what you're saying, that everyone has a story, and pretty much everyone is a star if you give them the recognition and the acknowledgement.
It's true.
Yeah, I mean, I sometimes will be in a supermarket or a market, and I'll just ask, the person behind the cash register, what do you do when you're not here? And, some people will say, well, I go to the gym and I sleep, but, I've gotten so many interesting answers. Well, I'm studying to be a marine biologist, or, I'm an airline pilot, or just, there's so much more than meets the eye if you just take a moment to look into it.
Right. It's like everybody, when we watch a movie, it's a snippet of life that somebody has, created for us to feel like we're, with those characters and seeing that snippet of life. But the truth is that everybody is living those snippets of life all around us in reality, like you said, and we just don't see them because sometimes we don't take the time to find out about their lives. We just see people passing by, and we don't realize the depth of stories that they have, and the things that they're going through that might be very similar to ours, or sometimes, very, very different and interesting.
Yeah. Yeah. Everyone has something, and, I've learned, especially also working in quote unquote Hollywood, there's a lot of like gossip that goes on, and you hear things about people or whatever, and I kind of learned, or just either learned or made a choice to take everything with a grain of salt until I actually had firsthand experience about it myself, and so that was that goes along with that as well. But so you said you're a martial artist.
Yeah, I love martial arts. I've been doing it since I was 5.
Wow. And what disciplines within martial arts or do you specialize in? Or
so my favorite martial arts. The disciplines that I studied, I started out in Taekwondo, and I studied. That was what I started when I was 5, and then I studied a martial art called Eagle martial art, which is Okinawan karate based. And then I studied Seido, which is the elite path of mastery by Soke Dave Johnson. It's a kind of a conglomeration of a lot of different aspects of styles. And those are the first 3 that I got my black belt in. And for the last 11 years, I've been training under a style that's my family style, which I created a long time ago called The Way. And that's what I'm teaching currently. And so I think we have 5 black belts now that have promoted through The Way, and we teach classes for free in the park, our community park up here in Oakhurst, and it's just a kind of a pay what you can when you can. We just want people to not have money be the issue of why they don't learn how to defend themselves.
Yeah.
And so we've been letting them just come join us, and it's been really neat to see how it affects their lives. I know for me, it changed everything for me. I mean, with self-confidence, it felt like the more that I learned about how to fight, the less that I felt I needed to fight, the more that I desired peace, and I think that's a contrast a lot of people don't know or don't expect when they think about martial arts. That is, I guess the quote is, if you train people if you desire peace, why do you train for war? And I love the quote that says, I'd rather be a samurai in the garden than a gardener, at war.
Yeah.
I think that it's great for kids, especially their self-esteem and their confidence and the way that they handle life changes dramatically when you watch them realize that they don't need to fear harm. They can defend themselves and others.
That's good. I studied a little bit, my early years, and took some classes in a style called Goju, which was interesting. Karate, more sort of circular-based type of thing.
Yeah.
But just been fascinated with, obviously watched a lot of the Bruce Lee and all of the martial arts movies, and like you, I was fascinated and taken by that whole aspect in the Matrix as well, and now I've become surprisingly maybe or not surprisingly, but I've become a big fan of mixed martial arts and the UFC and all of that stuff. And what's interesting about it is because, as I said, I've been going through living with this genetic disease that's kind of progressively impaired my mobility since the early 2000s, and I've found somehow that watching these competitors, the inner strength and inner spirit and their of the good ones of their code of conduct really somehow inspired me, and gave me inspiration and strength. So I was working on the 3rd Transformers movie in Chicago in 2010, and one day, do you know who Rashad Evans is?
I've heard of.
Well, he was a UFC light heavyweight champion, back around that era, and it was such a big thrill that he came to the set with his daughter, and I told him what I just said to you. I said, I'm a pacifist, and generally not inclined to fight, but I've just become, and my family laughs at me because I'm like totally obsessed with the UFC and mixed martial arts, and it's really inspired me. And he just looked at me and said, "Yeah, there's a fighter in all of us." And I thought that was pretty cool.
It is. That's really cool. I definitely agree with that. I think it's important because I think there's a lot of battles in life to fight that aren't in the ring or aren't even on the street. Like
right.
Like we talked about earlier with failure with anything. It's like you have to fight and you have to stand up
Yeah.
against forces in your life. And so I agree. There's a fighter in all of us.
Yeah. And I'm sure as a filmmaker too. I mean, a lot of times, people don't realize how much work goes into that, and how much I think tenacity and persistence you have to have in order to make a film and get that done.
That's so true. I talk about a thing that I call my OODA loop, which an OODA loop is something I learned when I was studying self-defense in multiple shooter scenarios in schools and things like that.
Yeah.
And they were talking about OODA loops, which is observe, orient, decide, and act.
Okay.
OODA, and how they applied it to the fact that you could use OODA loops in life and to deal with hard situations, like in filmmaking, with failure, with anything. And so
Yeah.
I developed mine in life as a filmmaker, because it is really difficult. There's a lot of places in the industry that can be really scary, especially if you don't know how to navigate them, and you can get taken advantage of, and a lot of things.
Yeah.
You can just make something that doesn't appeal the way you thought it would, and there's a lot of failure, and there's a lot of opportunities to stop, and to give up and to turn around. And so my loop was, I would dream big, then I would plan, then I would start, because I have a lot of people that I know that will want to make movies or write, and they just don't ever start. And
Right.
That's hard, but you have to face the fear of that and realize that failure is just an opportunity to grow. So they need to start, and then once they start, there comes a point that I talk about when I do seminars, which is, I think of it as a train tunnel. When you start into the train tunnel, it's exciting. You found this new tunnel, it's cool. And if it goes for a long way, there's a middle part of any creative project, and all creative people will understand, where you go to the middle point, and it's like you're in the middle of a train tunnel, and you can't see the entrance anymore because you've gone so far in, but you also can't see the exit, and so you feel like you're just kind of lost in the dark. And I think that's the point where perseverance is so important, and I think that that's the point a lot of people turn around, and they go back, because they're like, well, I don't know how much farther I need to walk.
Yeah.
And so I just say, no, that's when you need to persist, because the next step of the OODA loop is finishing. And once you get, you persevere and you finish, then you can grow, learn, and repeat.
Yeah. And I think also, like you said, once you've been through something once, and you know that you've finished it, and you've been through that darkness and that unknown part of it, then you have, I guess it's experience and faith, and you know yourself, and you know that you're going to get through it somehow.
Right. That's true. And you can help other people too, with your experience. You can let them know what it was like for you. Yeah. And hopefully they can learn and grow from that and feel encouraged.
Well, I think that's one of the great things, and I'm really that, now that I've, because of my disability and whatever, I've moved on from, the day-to-day aspect of the film business. I'm really have had a passion for, and I'm turning my attention to empowering young people, because I think that's something that is, it's our future, and to be able, and it's so, it doesn't take much. It doesn't really take much to empower anybody, just to give them some recognition and intention, and say, I think the four most powerful words that my mentor early on said to me was, "You can do it," and I think that's a very strong thing to be able to say to someone, to give them that.
I think so. I think so too. I think it's something that's missing in a lot of young people's lives.
Yeah.
I've worked with junior hires for about 13 years, and something that I've noticed is a lot of them don't have any encouragement at home.
Right.
They don't have anybody telling them that they can succeed and that you can do it. They don't have that. They have a lot of the opposite. And so when they have somebody come into their life that they see believes in them, it can change everything.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it doesn't take too many people. It just takes somebody believing in them.
Right. No, exactly. And to what you said before, I have a story that I love to tell. When I was working on Escape from L.A., which was 73 all-nighters in the wintertime, longest nights, and 3 o'clock in the morning we'd be sitting around, just talking to stay awake or whatever. And so the sound mixer on that film is a man named Tommy Causey, who at the time was, in his 50s, had 2 sons in college, was going through a divorce. So, he kind of had to keep working to keep everything going. But he was telling me one night how he had this secret desire that he had never acted upon to direct. And he had previously, before Escape from L.A., he had worked on the movie Dick Tracy that was directed by Warren Beatty. And Warren Beatty had gotten wind of, or somehow heard about, or knew about Tommy's secret desire. And he went up, Warren Beatty came up to him one day and gave him this Godfather-style hug and whispered in his ear, and he said, Tommy, start before you're ready. And I just think that's kind of echoed what you said about starting. That is, really good advice to give to people, because sometimes people will end up spending years and years getting all their ducks lined up and never really do what they want to do.
Right.
And
I think that's an awesome story, because I think that's the secret. That's like the secret sauce, I think, to success, because you're never ready, and you can always be more ready, I guess, so you never feel like you can be ready. It's like when, we decided to, have children. It's the same thing. People are like, hey, you ready to have kids? You're like, I don't think you're ever ready. I think it's the same thing as with any creative project. You're never quite ready. You just have to do it. Start before you're ready. I love that.
Well, you either you're never ready or you're always ready, and it just depends how you look at it. But there's the fable. I don't know if it's true or not, but there was the story about Steven Spielberg, how he walked onto the Universal lot and found an empty office and started making phone calls. When he was a young guy, and I love that. Whether it's true or not, I think it's a great story that kind of personifies or embodies what we're talking about here. Just going for it. And
you just go for it, and you don't fear failure. It's like you just create your art. You study well, you plan well, so that you make sure you have all the ducks you can line up ready. But then you jump in, whether ready or not. Here you come, and you go in and you make something awesome, and you do put your best work out there. The best that you can do.
Right.
And then the next time, learn from that and make something even better.
Yeah. Well, that sounds like the path that you're on, my friend. That sounds great. They also talk about the great independent American filmmaker from the 50s and 60s, John Cassavetes, and he would do. He was an actor, and he was friends with like Peter Falk and Seymour Cassell, and he was married to Jenna Rollins, and they were all actors, and same thing. They would all go do acting jobs, and when he had enough money, he'd just call everyone and say, "Okay, let's go," and then they'd start shooting their film. And that's just how it works.
Yeah.
So
that reminds me of.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
The importance of having a team you trust. That sounds like that's what he did, and it's like I have that team as well. I have my producers and my executive producers and my actors. It's like we're all a family, and so when projects come up, we just roll forward. I know another amazing filmmaker is named James Christopher out of Texas, with Twitchy Dolphin, and I know that he does the same thing. He has a group of people that he trusts, that they work so well together, and they would do anything for each other. And when they have the funds pop up and they have an awesome script, that whole team comes back together and makes something, and they work so well together because they've been together for so long. And that's something I definitely want to build as well, because I think that just amplifies the quality of work, because you know each other so well.
Yeah.
And you work together as such a functional team, like people don't even just say things, and you know what they're thinking.
You just fall in. And start going. And that's really cool. And also, I think once you start going, it kind of takes on a life of its own. And once you commit to something like that, the universe kind of opens up and gives you energy. And you're rolling. You have momentum.
Right. Yeah. And you keep that momentum up, and you keep that excitement up. And when you have that awesome team, and the times where you feel down, you have all these people around you to encourage you, and when they do, you encourage them, and so it really helps. It's definitely not filmmaking is definitely not a thing you do alone.
Right. And it also, filmmaking takes a lot of stamina. I don't think people necessarily realize that, but I've had people tell me that, because I don't know how you do it where you are, but in Hollywood, 12, 14, 16-hour days are like the norm. And you just it's a lot of energy and really a lot of hard work. So
it really is.
Yeah.
I remember people used to think, growing up, we'd always think, when we were in elementary school, wow, it would be such an easy job to be an actor. And then as you grow up, you realize it is not an easy job at all. And it's one of the most difficult things I've ever seen people have to do, is be a filmmaker, actor, producer, all of those things, because you're always consistently on, always working, always preparing, and always studying. And then for a director and producer, you're basically married to the project for years. So you better love it. You better be passionate about it, right? Because you pick a project, and it might take you 30 days to film or 60 days, depending on, the size of the project, and then you're in post-production for, it could be 10 to 12 months, and some of the animated films are so long, and so it's something people don't understand. It's not a quick process.
Right.
It's a very intricate and time-consuming process.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, no, that's true, and it's true. You have to stay with it and keep your interest and your passion, your momentum all the way through that, from development to script to pre-production, production, post-production, distribution, promotion. It's all part of it.
Yeah. Yep.
And that's interesting. That's interesting. So you have this great life. You live in a beautiful town. You've got a movie theater. You've done an amazing thing with that. And you said you also have a family. You have a wife and two sons. Did you say?
Two beautiful children. I have an 8-year-old daughter and a 5-year-old son.
Wow. So that's like you've got this one full-time job, and then you got your family, which is another full-time job. Really.
That's so true.
So you have that. And
go ahead.
No, I'm sorry. Go ahead. You go.
I was just going to say, and that's my favorite job. I love being a dad to my kids and a husband to my wife. And something I always wanted growing up was to have a happy family. And I feel like that's a priority. And that's definitely something that I know a lot of creatives, especially I think filmmakers, have trouble balancing. And that's something that I work on constantly. Is I want to make sure that I put my family in a position and priority in my life where they belong. And sometimes as a creative, it's easy to tunnel vision and obsess about the next project and the next thing that makes you excited about life, which is this project. And it's something always to remember every time I wake up in the morning is what matters to me. It's my family and my faith and my friends, and all these things matter to me. And I think when everything's in balance in your life, you're really happy,
Yeah.
And so that's something that I strive to do and put them first.
Well, that's great. That's great. I remember, what film was I working on? It was a movie called G-Force. Remember that movie?
Mm-hmm.
Animated.
Yep.
One of 7 films that I did with Jerry Bruckheimer over a 7-year period. But one of the construction guys on that film, he lived in Ventura, which is like 45 minutes north of Los Angeles, and it's kind of a schlep, a drive-in. And he had told me about how he was having, because of his work and his long hours, it was putting a strain on his marriage. He'd been married for 20 some odd years, and so they made a decision that he would get up. And they got up at like 3 o'clock in the morning, him and his wife, and they walked on the beach, and then she drove him to work. And it was like, so they got to spend quality time together. They addressed the situation like that. And I was really inspired by that when he said that to me. So
that is such a good idea. Yeah, it's so important. I mean, because people think that, they forget that quality time is what relationships are about. The time you spend with people. Shared experiences, communication, all that's so important. And so, definitely that time you set away, I bet that changed everything.
Well, yeah, you have to make an effort, and you have to focus on that. I remember, I worked with both Kurt Russell and Goldie Hawn on different films, and I've seen them together, and they've been together for a long time. And I was so impressed, like when one time I was working on this movie called Dark Blue with Kurt Russell, and Goldie Hawn came to visit on the set one day, and it was I really just observed them talking to each other. Like when she spoke, he really paid attention to her and listened to her like another person. A lot of times when people get in long-term relationships, they kind of go on autopilot, and he would, when they spoke, they like really stopped and listened to what each other was saying, and it was so interesting and reaffirming for me to see that.
Yeah, that is, and you're right. It's kind of a casual thing that you see happen, which is like people just kind of do the yeah, that's right, and they don't really listen.
Yeah,
because like they've heard so many things. So I bet that was very surprising and awesome that he did that, and that would be why the relationship's so strong.
Yeah,
you know what I think of? I think when you get married or where you're in love with somebody, it's like, this is a person, it's another human being that has their own loves and passions and desires in life and dreams, and this is another human being that has found you to be somebody they want to commit their entire future to. And it's like, when somebody does that, and they commit their entire future to you, how can you not listen to them? How can you not care about them? It's like this person has done the biggest honor ever, which is valuing you enough to want to be with you forever. At least that's how I feel about my wife. And I'm thinking, how could I not care about how she feels? Because this is a person that has valued me more than anything that she's ever valued in life.
Right, and and when you take your vows, you for better or for worse, for richer or for poorer, you don't know what's going to happen to the person, and so or what changes they might want to go through, or what's going to happen. So, you accept the whole package.
Yep, good and bad.
And one thing that I also, my parents, my mom was, went through 3 different divorces, and it was kind of affected me when I was younger, and I was kind of an angry young kid. And then at a certain point in my life, and I can't remember when it was, but all of a sudden I just realized, hey, my parents are human beings and they're my friends. And when I saw it in that way, it just opened up. It became so much richer, my relationship with them. So, I think it's whoever it is in your life that you love. If you see them, they're people and they have feelings and they go through things just like you do. So, it's interesting. I do a thing sometimes when I speak to students, and I'll say, well, let me see a show of hands of anyone here who knows somebody who blames all their problems on other people. And, a majority of the students raise their hands. And I say, well, check it out. It's kind of like a math equation. If you blame your problems on other people, then who has the power? The other person. So I said, if you take responsibility for your life and your situation, then where does the power lie? It comes back to you. And, I kind of see them nodding their heads and, taking this in. But it's interesting. It's an interesting journey.
Yeah. Yeah, it definitely is. It's neat to watch young people realize things like that.
Yeah. And so you also, you were saying earlier that you work with young people both through your martial arts and other areas in your town and your area?
I've worked with young people through martial arts, through my church, through the theater, through a bunch of things, and I've dealt with them now for 13 years, and that's 5th through 8th grade.
Wow.
And just watching them and their stories. I mean, you have kids that have been homeless. You have 5th graders that are, addicted to drugs. You have kids that are hurting so bad at really young ages. And what I find they most want is they want to be loved and they want to feel like they matter.
Yeah.
And I feel like sometimes they don't find that in our culture.
Yeah.
And they need somebody to tell them that.
Yeah. And it doesn't take much, really, to do that.
Yeah.
You just have to decide that you want to do it. And and the same thing with young people, also with the elderly. Or, there are many groups that we could go to and say that, a little bit of recognition and acknowledgement can go a long way in life. And so anyway, so we're closing in on the end of our hour. I can't believe it, because I feel like we could keep going on for a long time. We're just touching the surface here. But what's next up for you? I know you're going to be working on getting Altar out there, and your other projects. Do you have a new script that you're working on?
I do. I'm reading at the moment. I'm reading 4 scripts from different filmmakers that are pretty awesome. I also have 10 projects of my own that I'm deciding when to put them into play. Scripts that are written all across all genres. We have faith-based, we have family, we have sci-fi, action, we have everything. It's just when is the right time for those stories to be told, and I'm trying to figure that out. I know I'm working on a concept teaser of a hilarious kind of sci-fi action, like Shaun of the Dead meets Zombieland.
Oh, wow.
Shaun of the Dead meets sci-fi
meets
Zombieland, and just kind of a buddy comedy with 2 girls as the leads. So I'm working on a lot of different things, but basically what I want to find is the story that inspires me, that I'm ready to be married to for years, and launch into that thing. And I really want Altar to succeed. I want it to be able to get out there. I feel like it's very, very good. I feel like people will love it. If people want to see it, they could go to altarthemovie.com, and it's altar, it's ALTAR, like an altar you worship. Sometimes
Right.
people think it's like altering or changing something.
Right,
but
right.
it's not. So yeah, alterthemovie.com takes them to our Facebook page, and they can check out the trailer and they can join in the
good.
fun.
Well, I'm going to do that when we sign off here. So, well, that's it. Well, I hate to say this, Matt, but we're at the end. Oh, one thing I meant to ask you is, do you go by Matt, or do you prefer Matthew, or does it matter? How does
I
it
go
work?
by Matt.
Oh, good. Okay. My dad's name was Matthew, but everyone called him Matt. So I feel I feel a connection.
Yeah.
But well, anyway, okay. So alterthemovie.com, ALTAR, and
Yep.
any parting words you want to say to young filmmakers, young people out there?
I would just say, like you said, jump in and begin. Like you can use your cell phone camera. It doesn't matter. Just start telling stories. Start getting out there and doing, and then take all the criticism and critique people throw at you afterwards, and take the stuff that makes you better, and learn and grow, and then repeat, and just keep doing that until you accomplish your dreams.
Wow. All right. Well, great words. Thank you so much. And please stay tuned for Joe Rocks and Night Talk here on Armed Radio Global. Good night, everyone.